Across nearly 3 years and over 1,000 days of owning my truck, I've spent a good deal of money maintaining and keeping my truck in good shape. I'm interested in seeing how my maintenance schedule and costs compare to industry averages and the typical maintenance required for most vehicles. Let's get into it. For background, I bought my pickup truck at 194,000 miles in July of 2021. The purchase price of the vehicle was about $8,000. It was single owner and we bought it with a couple known issues, including a broken rear window latch, an exhaust leak, and the owner had told us that four-wheel drive low would not engage. I later found out that four-wheel drive low actually did engage and there were no problems with using it. In order for me to begin driving this vehicle, there were a few maintenance items that I wanted to knock out preventatively and right away upon purchase. 3 things were addressed: the timing belt, the water pump, and the radiator. If the timing belt goes, your engine often goes with it. If the radiator goes, it can leak into the transmission. And in many cases, if the lower ball joint goes, you're rebuilding or replacing other suspension components as well. It was somewhere between $800 and $1,000 for parts and labor. A pretty good deal, and probably less expensive than most people would pay to have that done at a shop today. So we'll call it $1,000. Almost immediately following that, I got the lower ball joints done. That was $220 in parts from McGeorge Toyota. This includes 2 lower ball joints and 8 new bolts to be installed. I paid $120 in order to purchase a front end service kit, which I used to help change out these parts. To be able to take off my wheels and torque them correctly to spec, as well as torque other things on the suspension to spec, I did have to purchase a higher torque wrench. A new torque wrench was $110. Then in April of 2022, I addressed 2 issues that had occurred with the truck in 2021 and 2022. A new tailgate handle in the back, I went OEM Toyota, and that was $110 on Toyota parts deal. I also went with a new Toyota emblem. On a camping trip in July of 2021, the emblem had been whacked by a bush, or maybe it just come loose on its own, had fallen off. $35 for the Toyota emblem, also from Toyota parts deal. In July of 2022, I also replaced the front brake pads. $50, I went with an Akabono brand off of Rock Auto. Around July of 2022, I had a flat tire. I opted to replace all 4 tires with brand new tires. This wasn't absolutely required, but the tires were nearing the end of their life. Now, I went with nice brand name all-terrain tires. Browsing a couple tire websites, it looks like the minimum you would pay for this is about $400 to $480 for 4 brand new tires. I paid closer to $680, as well as a small fee to have them mounted and balanced at a local tire shop. In keeping track of my maintenance, we'll say that that was a $500 expense, since I did overpay for tires that many other people wouldn't choose if they were just maintaining their vehicle. In January of 2023, my battery died on the truck, and I put a new battery in the vehicle for $240 after core reimbursement. Around the same time, I finally got around to replacing that rear window latch. I was tired of snow falling into the vehicle when I left it outside parked in snowstorms. So we replaced that for $15 for a pair. I only used one of them, but I couldn't buy them individually. So $15 for the rear window latch. Then around March of 2023, my truck developed a misfire. It was marked by a check engine light and a very, very rough idle where the truck was nearly dying. I took this to a shop where they diagnosed it and replaced 2 coil packs. All said and done, this was $436 for parts and labor. While they were working on the truck, I also asked for diagnosis on the exhaust leak and to see if they could possibly fix it. They noticed an exhaust stud that was broken. They replaced that for $193 in parts and labor. $3 of it was parts, $190 of it was labor. Didn't end up fixing the exhaust leak at all. That one's kind of a bummer. If you're enjoying this video, please give it a thumbs up so that I know you found it valuable. Also around this time, I'd had a nagging check engine light for O2 sensors. So finally in May of 2023, I replaced both O2 sensors, even though I only had a code for one. O2 sensors were $40 a sensor and $5 for a specialty tool. All said, $85. In November of 2023, I was trying to fix a drivetrain clunk, something in the drive shaft that would clunk and bind up sometimes when I stopped or when I would get onto the gas from a stop. I paid $31 for a grease gun and about $10 for drivetrain grease that fixed the issue. Did the labor myself. Currently, I am chasing down a check engine light P0441. I'm starting with a new gas cap. The gas cap was $37. If the gas cap doesn't fix the issue, the next likely cause is about a $100 EGR valve that goes in the engine bay, and I'll be looking at replacing that myself. But that hasn't happened yet. We're right in the middle of a fix here. Let's also talk about some more regular maintenance that I have performed but did not include in the list that I just gave you. Multiple oil changes a year, 1 transmission drain and fill, changing out the rear differential fluid, changing out the transfer case fluid, doing spark plugs, and a couple of new air filters. For oil changes, I've noticed that I can do them myself in the $50 to $60 range, while having a shop do it has been closer to $60 to $70. So let's get into comparing my total maintenance costs to typical industry average reported maintenance costs of other vehicles. All the unexpected and preventative repairs that have been performed on the truck, and I'll also add oil changes at the rate of 2 oil changes per year at $60 per oil change. Here are my totals on a per year basis. It's also worth noting that I keep some of my labor costs lower by performing the work myself. Now, Consumer Reports estimates that the average annual vehicle maintenance and repair costs, so this includes scheduled maintenance as well as preventative and as well as unexpected maintenance. They expect $900 in that. So my totals on a per year basis are higher than what Consumer Reports expects. They also expect that specifically Toyota brand vehicles will have about $600 per year in maintenance. Now this is a full-size pickup, so it should be slightly more expensive probably than passenger cars and maybe slightly above what is average. But what we should also note here is that I performed some maintenance costs that the lifespan of that part is significantly longer than my ownership window. So what we can do to adjust for this is to annualize some of my maintenance costs. For example, the timing belt is more like a 10-year or 100,000 mile maintenance interval. Tires last 5 or 6 years generally. A battery lasts 5 years. My lower ball joints are good for 6 years. What we can do is annualize those and reduce the cost of them because we know they're gonna last a long time. So for example, on the timing belt, I paid for a new timing belt 3 years ago, but it's expected to last 10 years. So I can cut 66% off of that price, and now I've annualized the cost of that timing belt. I've done it on a per year basis because it's not every 3 years that I'll have to change the timing belt, it's every 10. If we annualize some of those larger repairs that last for a longer time, that last longer than my ownership window, we actually get down to $693 per year in maintenance. Another website that I looked at, carinsurance.com, estimated that if you owned a vehicle for 8 years, you would pay $3,400 in repairs and maintenance. If that's the case, I'm screwed because I'm already over $3,000 in my first 3 years of ownership. AAA says you should expect to pay 9.83 cents per mile that you drive, so almost 10 cents per mile in maintenance and repairs. This comes out to $1,474 per 15,000 miles. So on a per mile basis, we can also look at what it's cost me to maintain my vehicle. In about 3 years of ownership, I've driven my vehicle 37,000 miles. So I'm driving about 12,000 miles a year. So the per mile is kind of a better match than the per year. Since this is per mile, we can slightly change how I do oil changes and assume they happen at 5,000 miles, $60 per oil change. Adjusting to this, I get about 10 cents per mile on my vehicle or $1,500 for every 15,000 miles. If we annualize our 4 largest repairs with our adjusted oil change interval, we get 6.36 cents per mile or $953 per 15,000 miles. So with annualized data and the adjusted oil changes, we're actually beating the AAA estimate by a significant amount. I am beating AAA by a decent amount, but notice that some of the other averages and predictions I'm kind of losing to. So weigh both evenly, think about what I might be missing or what might be unfair or not represented in some of this data. I have one more source, which is RepairPal. RepairPal is a service and website that a lot of other people use to build up some of these articles and estimates, so it's good to go straight to the source. For Toyota Tundras in general, RepairPal expects you to spend $606 per year maintaining your vehicle. A typical full-size truck has an industry average of $950 a year in repair and maintenance. According to RepairPal, all vehicles combined average about $650 a year in maintenance and repairs. Now, there are some other things we should consider. For example, if you start to add in the cost of all the tools that it takes me to perform this maintenance on my own time, you're gonna add and incur even more costs. Socket sets, wrenches, jack stands, all these different tools do add up, and they are a real part of being a DIY mechanic and owning an older vehicle. But being a DIY mechanic, there's also value to me not having to schedule my vehicle to go to a shop and try and figure out how I'm gonna get around while my vehicle's in a shop. I don't have to incur any of the lost time that you might have if you have to constantly drop off your vehicle and organize new rides to and from the shop to and from work, etc. I never have to take off work to go pick up my vehicle or anything like that. I'm usually able to keep it in good running condition between what I can do and very rare visits to the shop. So that's the data. Personally, I feel really comfortable with annualizing the data. That makes it a much more fair comparison to other industry averages that are probably doing the same thing and working on the same assumptions. Annualizing the data accurately reflects the possibility that I could have elected not to address any of those maintenance items and still been fine, since those maintenance windows are larger than my ownership time frame. Even if you include smaller things like spark plugs and air filters that get tossed in here and there, I'm still probably under $700 annually on average to maintain my vehicle, which measures up pretty well compared to industry averages around $950 for most full-size pickups. And hey, if I'm anywhere around industry average on a 20-year-old vehicle, I feel pretty darn good about that. So what do you guys think? What are you paying on an annual basis to maintain your vehicles? Did I miss anything? Are you paying significantly more or significantly less than average? I would love to know. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.